Okay, so this situation, totally not my fault. If you want to see all the booktubers who are responsible for this level of book purchase, stay tuned. So I bought some books, but most of them are not even my fault. They're the fault of booktubers, other creators, and I'm going to name and shame them as we go through who's responsible for each of these purchases, because generally it wasn't my fault, all right? Was not my fault. Okay, so the first ones I want to show you are the fault of the booktube prize. Robert is responsible for these, so let me quickly talk you through them. If you're not aware, I am a booktube judge, very excited, and I am judging Group G of the translated fiction category. So I have 4 of the books here. The first one is How to Order the Universe by Maria Jose Ferada and translated by Elizabeth Breyer. This is a novel translated from Spanish, and broadly I think it follows a father and a daughter who sort of go on a road trip selling hardware or something like that. I'm sure it's much more exciting than that, but I think it's about the father-daughter relationship, and it's all told in like these little vignettes. So hopefully that'll be quite a quick one to get through. All thoughts on my booktube prize books will be coming after the results of the octafinal are announced at the end of March. So yeah, so there's one. Next up we have Where You Come From by Sasa Stanisic. Apologies if I've pronounced that wrong, and translated by Damien Sells. This is described as a mix between autofiction, fable and choose your own adventure. Intrigued, colour me intrigued, and it follows a family as they migrate out of Yugoslavia around the time of the war, I believe. I don't know, I might have made that up. And move to Germany. So yeah, that was the next one I bought. And then we have Loop by Brenda Lozano. This is also translated from the Spanish, translated by Annie McDermott. And this is a Odysseus and Penelope retelling, a modern retelling. And I believe it is all stream of consciousness. So there is that one. Love this green. I'm not going to go into loads of detail because there are so many books. So many books. Next up we have Strange Beasts of China by Yang Gi. This is translated by Jeremy Tiang. And this is about a sort of fantastical China, a fictional town in China. I have started it, as you can see. I can't remember the name of the city. Yong'an, where beasts live. And we follow a young reporter as she sort of discovers more about these beasts, and I think there may be a mystery involved as well. So that is Strange Beasts of China, translated from the Chinese, if I didn't say that. So those were the fault of the booktube prize. Next up we have one that is the fault of Shirley Swearingen. So Shirley recently read one of James Baldwin's books, Giovanni's Room, maybe, I can't remember. I think it was in her January wrap up. I will link that below. But it got me thinking I really need to get to some James Baldwin, so I picked up If Beale Street Could Talk. This one is about a 19-year-old girl who finds herself pregnant, and the father of her baby is in jail accused of rape. So yeah, sounds pretty hard hitting. Obviously James Baldwin is a super popular author, and I really want to get to his work. I'd like to get to all of his work at some point, but I haven't read any yet. So this is where I'm going to start. It's not a very big book, so I'm really hoping to get to it like sooner rather than later this year. But Shirley Swearingen, that's who's responsible for this. Next up is a group effort. Many people are responsible for me purchasing this one. The book in question is Terry Pratchett's The Colour of Magic. So this is the first in the Discworld series, or the first to be published. There's lots of different ways you can read them. One of the people responsible for this purchase is Jack over at Spread Bookjoy, and she has a video talking about like the different ways that you can read Terry Pratchett, so I'll link her video for that below. But also responsible for this is Rosie Cockshut and Scott over at Gunpowder Fiction and Plot, who have been talking about this a lot recently, this series, and have been holding some read-longs for different places where you can start in the Discworld. So broadly, this is an adult fantasy, and it's something to do with a world that's like on a tortoise being ridden by an elephant with a massive disc on his back or something along those lines. I don't know, but everyone's talking about it, and I've never read any Terry Pratchett, so I thought I'd start with this one. Next, I'm going to move over to Melina Reads, who is hosting a Bronte along this year. So she's hosting a read along for all the Bronte sisters novels throughout the year. I will leave her announcement video below. So they're all spread. Some of them have 2 months attributed to them if they're chunkier books. I have read some Bronte and not others, so I will be joining for the ones that I haven't read. And one of the ones for later in the year is Shirley by Charlotte Bronte. I picked this up in a charity shop, which is why I got it so much earlier than I needed it, and it was like £2. So yeah, again, I don't really know anything about it. I guess it's about a girl called Shirley. Charlotte Bronte also wrote Villette. I do have a copy of that already. I have a cloth-bound, which I also haven't read, so I'll be reading both of these this year. But this one in particular is Melina's fault. Next, let's go to Emily at Novell Novels. Emily. So I put Ruth Jones's Us 3 on her recommendation. I can't remember which wrap-up it was in. I will try and find it and link it below, but she raved about this book, said it was really good. It is actually chunkier than I thought it would be. Again, picked this up at a charity shop. And this is about 3 friends who sort of swear to be together forever, and I guess there's some drama and some heartache and emotions and stuff that happen throughout. But I really like Ruth Jones. I think she's really funny, and I'd really like to try some of her work. For those that don't know, Ruth Jones played Nessa in Gavin and Stacey. If you haven't seen Gavin and Stacey, man, you're missing out. It's bloody funny. So yeah, I'd really like to try her fiction and see what that's like. While we're on the case of Emily, bless her little cottons, she sent me 2 books. So I didn't buy them, but the fact that my bookshelves are fuller is her fault. So the first one she sent me is The Age of Miracles by Karen Thompson Walker. And I think this is sort of post-apocalyptic. She didn't really tell me too much about it, but she just said she thought I'd like it. So I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, I'll send it to you. And I was like, okay, I'll read it at some point. So yeah, quite intrigued to see what this is like. And the other book she sent me was Things in Jars by Jess Kidd, which I've had my eye on for ages. And she was unhauling, so she was like, I'll send you that one too. She is a diamond, but man, my bookshelves are struggling. And this is set in the 1800s, and I think it's sort of a mystery. We follow a detective who's trying to find out what happened to a missing child, and there's all sort of medical curiosities and stuff. So yeah, I'm really intrigued to read this. I don't think I've read any Jess Kidd before, but she does intrigue me as an author, so I'm really pleased to have it. So thanks, Ebs. Okay, next up is The Fault of Jennifer at Jennifer Loves Books. So Jennifer Loves Books, or just Jennifer is her name, her actual name, quite often talks about mysteries and thrillers and those sorts of things, which are not usually my jam, but she has really raved about Sarah Waters as an author, and I saw Affinity in a charity shop and thought I would give it a go. I know this isn't her most popular one, but it was there. It was £2, so I picked it up. So yeah, I will be giving Sarah Waters a go at some point in the hopefully not too distant future. Okay, next up, Kieran at KD Books. This one is your fault. We have S by Slavenka Draculik. I've probably said that really wrong. And this is translated by Marko Ivic. And this is set in the Bosnian War and follows the sort of horrific scenes of rape and torture of the civilian women in Bosnia at that time. I will link Kieran's review for this because it made me pick it up. But yeah, I am super intrigued. I think this is going to be really hard reading, but I know nothing about the Bosnian War, and I feel like I should know more about things like that. So yeah, keen to pick up this and see what it's like. Translated from German. The next one is sort of like a two-way fault of Kieran at KD Books and also Bob the Bookerer, because they are co-hosting along with Beating Around the Books a Fitzhuary, in which you read books that are published by Fitzcarraldo. So for those that don't know, Fitzcarraldo published these blue covers. Their non-fiction is in white covers, and this has been on my radar for a while. This is Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk. And this follows a woman in Poland who is trying to work out what happened to her dogs, I think. I don't know too much about it, but I'll be honest, the reason I picked it up is because it had plough in the title and I work in agriculture. Is that a reason to pick up a book? But I have heard people say this one's quite good, so I'm keen to see what it's like. However, it is, as I'm filming this, the 17th of February. Have I picked this up? No! Am I going to get a chance to pick it up? No! Are we surprised? No! So, yeah, I will be picking this one up at some point. But yeah, this is the fault of Kieran and Bob. Another one that's Bob's fault. English Pastoral by James Rebanks. Sorry, I've got to pick the sticker off. So, yeah, English Pastoral by James Rebanks. This is a non-fiction, and I did see Bob review this, and it sounded really interesting, and now I can't really remember what it's about. It's about like the English countryside and agriculture and the effects of agriculture on the countryside, I believe. As an ag person, I am intrigued to see whether this is a realistic account of agriculture in the English countryside, or if it's you know, all agriculture is the devil, and you know, yeah, we'll see. But keen to pick this up. So yeah, but this one's Bob's fault. Next, The Fault of Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, and that is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. So this is a sort of weird sci-fi, I think it's a trilogy, yes, it's a trilogy, where people go to this weird like Area X and have to work out what's happened. I've heard it's quite bizarre and that you don't really get any answers, but people love it. So I've been wanting to try some Jeff Vandermeer for a while, and me and Alice, when we were talking about the booktube prize, because his newest book, Hummingbird Salamander, was on the long list that people didn't see. It didn't make it through, unfortunately, but because it was on that, she said she'd read this and it was really good, so I saw it, picked it up. Plus, hot pink cover. So yeah. Next, we have a book that's not the fault of a booktuber, but is the fault of my offspring, and that is Wundersmith. So we finished Nevermore. I don't know when we finished it. I wrapped it up. When did I wrap it up? Did I wrap it up in January? Or December? I don't know. I wrapped it up recently anyway, and he demanded that we immediately get book number 2 because he loved it so much. So I bought Wundersmith. As you can see, we have already started it. And yeah, so really that was my own fault for procreating. I think those are all the books that were other people's fault. Now I do have a couple that were my own fault. So first up we have Three Apples Fell from the Sky by Narine Abgaryan. Abgaryan? Sorry. And this is translated from the Russian by Lisa C. Hayden. And this is about a sort of a sleepy Russian village, and it's supposed to be quite light-hearted and quite funny, about a woman who wakes up one day and thinks she's dying, and then enters some new character and everything gets turned on its head. Something along those lines, but sounds really interesting. I don't think I've ever read anything translated from Russian. I've got several Russian classics on my to-read list, but I certainly haven't read any modern Russian translation. So yeah, very keen to get to this one soon. And this was part of the Shelterbox Book Club that I subscribe to. So I get a book every 6 weeks, I think, for that. And this was the most recent pick. And then we have a few that I bought just because I wanted them. First up, we have Open Water by Caleb Azumah Nelson. This is sort of a slice of life about a young black man and a young black woman living in London and how they meet. Sorry, it's quite shiny. How they meet and their relationship together. And I think things happen to sort of tear them apart. I have started it, as you can see. I'm about 50, 60 pages in. And it is beautifully written for a debut. I saw Camilla at HG Books review this last week. So I will link her review for it below because she did a great job. But yeah, this is a fantastic book and I'm really glad I picked it up. The next book I picked up was The Comfort Book by Matt Haig. This is a non-fiction and I think it's supposed to just give you warm, sort of cosy vibes. And this won, I think, the non-fiction category in the Goodreads Awards, and I am going to be trying to read the whole of that category this year, and then I will rate them. So this is one of the 20 that are in that list for me to get to quite soon. And I got this slightly cheaper because it was the Christmas edition and it has snow on. But man, I'll pay less for snow. And look how pretty it is underneath. Oh, isn't that a nice surprise? And the last book I have for you was a complete impulse buy when I was in a charity shop, and that is Dangerous Women by Hope Adams. So this follows a ship, a sort of penal colony ship, going from London to Australia in the 1800s, 1841, full of convicted female passengers, and they're all on board, full of mothers, daughters, and halfway across the ocean someone is murdered and it's about what happens. I read The Exiles by Christina Baker Klein year before, which covered sort of this topic, and I really enjoyed it, so I was keen to pick it up, and it was a hardback in the charity shop. So it was like £3.50, bargain. So I picked it up and I really like the cover. And it's got really stunning end pages as well. So yeah, so that was all the books that I bought over Christmas and actually over the winter. And actually it's not really, because I did a haul at the beginning of January of like what I got for my birthday and Christmas. So yeah, so those are all the books I've bought. And if you are interested in seeing other examples of what I've shown, zero self-control, then please check out one of these videos, which are my hauls from last year. Alright guys, nice to see ya, bye!